Hello and welcome to Furious Driving. It's time once again to dust off the old crystal ball and make some more rock solid, bet the house on it, guaranteed predictions. 10 more cars I can assure you will definitely be either a rock solid investment, become a stone cold classic, or at the very least earn some admiring glances at future classic car shows. Yeah, these are the cars that are in the last chance saloon of classicdom, appropriately enough being filmed from a last chance saloon here in the driveway. Now these are cars that once cost serious money and someone had to shell out big monthly payments in order to have these on their drive when they were shiny and new, but the bell curve of depreciation is our friend here. And there's never been a better time to nab one of these while they languish at the bottom of that curve, and maybe even have the bonus of them creeping up in value as they become rare and nostalgia kicks in. But before we start, I just want to say a huge thank you to channel sponsor Lancaster Insurance for making this particular video possible. So let's get started, and we're not going to go and look at cars that are already classics or supercars because they guarantee classicdom. These are the cars that were once everyday machines, ordinary street furniture that sold to ordinary people and were literally everywhere. But they deserve to become classics, either thanks to great design or clever technology to somehow make them memorable. And where I've used values in these things, I've taken the prices from Auto Trader or eBay, and the predictions are based on, well, previous cars, market trends, and my own hunches. So, scientific stuff. Right, let us begin. Now first up, the BMW i3. Now we need at least one electric car on the list because these are now pushing 10, 20 years old and they're creeping into retro territory already, so we can't ignore the interesting ones. Usable everyday models of these are now sitting £5,000 to £6,000, which is a big climb down from the 40 to 50,000 when they were new. But some of them are as low as 4,000 or even less if they've got a bit of damage on them. So they really are an absolute bargain to buy at the moment. Bit of history, they came out in 2013 and ran to 2022. In 2014 they were the World Car Design of the Year. They're all rear drive with a rear motor and available either as pure electric battery car or with a range extender engine to produce power on the fly and give the car more range. And that range started from about 80 miles, went up to 150, but it's over 200 with the range extender engine on board. There's also a lot of firsts for the i3 as well. It was the first of BMW's new i brand for the electric cars. It was BMW's first ever production electric car as well. It was also the first mass production car with most of its internal structure and body made from carbon fibre reinforced plastic, and with that built on an aluminium chassis, the thing weighs 1,290 kilos, which is nothing. In fact, it's 300 kilos less from the more traditional Zoe, which is a similar size little EV. It's also got really interesting design, exciting interior, lots of really clever materials like recycled plastic bottles for the seat fabrics and eucalyptus wood on the dashboard. It's also great to drive and there is lots of room inside it, so really it's a great all-rounder. It really is lots to love on that thing. So as we move into the future and EVs do become nostalgic, I think the i3 is one that's definitely worth stucking into a garage somewhere, because that is going to be the future of classic electric cars right there. Now next up we've got something which is a bit more traditional, but also something that doesn't exist anymore from that particular manufacturer. Yes, it's the Alfa Romeo Breera. We can also include the Alfa Spider in this, and to a certain extent the Alfa 159. The Breera replaced a long-running 916 GTV and of course the 916 Spider, which were popular, well-loved, well-liked, and this one with its 6 stacked lights at the front was also a design classic. It looked fantastic. The Type 939 Breera and Spider were built on the GM premium platform, which was developed in Sweden by Saab and only shared outside the Spider and Breera with the 159. And the 159 is basically the same car up until about halfway down the front doors. The Breera was designed by Giugiaro at Total Design, and it's got smooth curves and sharp lines, and it's incredibly close to the 2002 Maserati V8 powered concept, which it sprung from and shared its name with. It's produced from 2005 to 2010, and it was part of Alfa's push to improve its quality. It does, though, because of that heavy platform, feel like a heavy sports car, a bit heavy to be a true Alfa Romeo, but it looks fantastic and the interior is incredible. There were a variety of options, petrol and diesel. You got the 1.75 litre TBI, the 2.2 litre JTS, and you got the 3.2 litre V6, as well as 2 litre and the 2.4 JTDM 5-cylinder turbo diesel, which is a lump of an engine, but really does sound quite nice for a diesel. You could also have it as an all-wheel drive option on the 3.2 and the 2.4 litre engines. They built 12,488 Spiders and 21,786 Breeras all told, but the one to go for is the UK-only S edition, which was redeveloped or reworked by ProDrive here in the UK, where they reworked the suspension, the ride, the handling, added a bit of extra performance with a new exhaust and a few other little tweaks. Only the way that only ProDrive can do, and they really brought out the potential of the chassis. Whereas the regular one feels a little bit lumpy and heavy, the S does feel much more alive and much more fun to play with. They only made 500 of them, but those changes can be applied to pretty much any other Breera or Spider if you go and buy the right parts. But since the Breera and the Spider were dropped, Alfa have not made a new Spider or Coupe. The Fiat 124 Spider was going to be the new Alfa Spider, but they diverted it to Fiat for reasons. And so these are the last proper Alfa sports cars. Possibly the last ones ever, unless Stellantis have a bit of a turnabout in their thoughts and the new product lineup evolves to include this, which I really hope it does do. And so as an end of an era, last of a line, they're becoming more and more desirable as the current range just tails off into dismal SUVs, and now really is a great time to buy them. You can pick up a project for £2,000 or less and a tidy runner for £3,000. Spend a bit more for an absolute minter, but now is a great time to grab a brilliant bargain Breera. Now we're heading from Italy to Germany for the Mercedes C-Class, but not just any C-Class, the W204 C63. Now the W204 was already a good platform, not just a decent rear-wheel drive car with good handling and discreet and almost timeless styling. It was a step back to classic Mercedes build quality after a few years of slightly disappointing rust and breakdowns. My old C250, for example, has just passed its MOT with 150,000 miles on it, and it only needed new brake discs to pass. I know this because for some reason I'm still on the text alerts for this car. I don't know why. But the C63 was a landmark as it was the last of the naturally aspirated V8 Mercedes C63s before turbos and fewer cylinders and hybrids took over. They built them from 2007 to 2015, and the star of the party is the 6.2 litre normally aspirated V8, the M156 engine. It produced an impressive 451 bhp as standard and 481 in the later performance package version cars. And those engines were all hand built by AMG at Affolterbach with a nameplate from the builder on every one, giving a real supercar feel to the Super Saloon. And it is a super saloon. It does 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds, rear-wheel drive, a limited slip diff, and the exhaust note sounds, well, it's right up there with all the other supercars. Since then, Mercedes have moved to smaller engines, hybrids and turbos, but there is talk of bringing back a V8. But this was the last pure incarnation. There's no turbo, no hybrid, just a light rear-wheel drive car with a bucket load of torque and horsepower. Currently, most are around £15,000 to £20,000, creeping up into the 20s, but with saloon, coupe and estate versions, there is literally something for everyone and a guaranteed future classic. Now, sticking with fast versions of regular cars, the Fiesta ST. Now, who doesn't love a fast Ford? But a warmed up blue oval has been better than money in the bank for decades, but this is a bit of a swan song for Ford making great cars. The 2017 to 2023 generation Fiesta ST is another last of the line. Car makers really are doing their best to take the fun out of driving these days, deleting the hot models and making automatic only. And then Ford went and killed the Fiesta, which I still say is a dumb move. Okay, quick tangent. Sure, the margin is smaller on small cars, but it's a gateway into brand loyalty for long-term future customers. If a new driver wants to buy a new car and can't afford a bigger Ford, they'll buy a smaller Ford. But if they can't buy a smaller Ford, they'll buy something like a Kia Picanto, and chances are when they trade that Picanto in, they'll buy the next size up Kia and then the next size up after that and move into an EV. And they've got a lifelong Kia customer. Ford have lost out generations down the line. But what do I know? The ST was a benchmark for hot hatch small car fun, going back all the way into the 1970s when it wasn't even called the ST. But the last generation does 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds. It's 197 horsepower, 214 foot-pound of torque, raised up to 236 during production, and a top speed of 143 miles an hour in a Fiesta. Now, hot hatches are kind of a dying breed, and its real closest rivals were the Hyundai i20N and the Mini JCW GP. But the Hyundai lacks the history of the Ford and feels a bit fussy and, overly done. And the Mini feels a bit more grown up and sensible, and less like the excited puppy it used to. But that's not to say the Fiesta was cheap. £30,000 is not to be sniffed at for a Fiesta. Now, Ford killed the 3-door before the 5-door finished the run, but as with all hot hatches, the 3-door is the best looking. If you want to find an investment car, I would say go for the 3-door body shell. But as I say, fast Fords are always a good investment. There's always demand for them, people always want them. But as they're not making anymore, that's the one to go for, the last of the line. Now, this is the first of 2 Land Rover products on this list of 10 cars. You might think I'm being too Land Rover centric, and maybe you're right, but this is the L322 Range Rover. Now, YouTube has been full of L322s lately. Everyone seems to have realised what an amazing value car they currently are, and even Clarkson still runs one of these on his farm, which he's owned for years. They offer huge luxury, incredible capability, and surprising reliability for a Land Rover, if you keep it well maintained. I helped my friend buy one with 250,000 miles on it last year, and he drove it daily until an expensive module finally went pop, and now he's got my old Mark 1 Freelander, so he gets sucked into that fold of brand loyalty there. It lifted Range Rover luxury and interiors to a whole new level beyond the P38 that it replaced. They added the BMW V8 after decades of the Rover Buick, and the supercharged option was there, as well as diesel options, and it was the first Range Rover which got air suspension as standard for smoother ride and better off-road ability. Now, there is a ridiculous range of prices for these things. Leggy cars are plentiful under £2,000, and there's even one on Auto Trader with nearly 300,000 miles on it needing a bit of work for 750. That's ridiculous. At the other end of the spectrum, the most recent best ones are currently over £30,000 still, so there really is something for everyone in that spectrum. Now, looking into the future, the styling is modern but classic Range Rover still. It looks classy, it looks dignified, it's big, but it's not obnoxiously big, and it's one of the nicest places to be wherever you might be. It's just always the perfectly comfortable, relaxing, serene escape. They have a really strong following. And as Jaguar Land Rover chase a more designer handbag market these days, the old school luxury farm truck seems like they're going to get more and more popular. I think it's a safe place to put some money if you're looking for a future Range Rover classic. Okay, now, bear with me on this one. I've not completely lost it. I think there's a bit of logic to this one. The PT Cruiser. Now, I've not had a mental breakdown here. The PT Cruiser is cool because it's so uncool, it actually goes all the way around to become anti-cool, and therefore it's cool again. The clock face has spun a full 360. Okay, objectively it is a terrible car. The engines are wheezy and thirsty and underpowered, the manual gears are graunchy and awkward, and it would be one of the few cars I'd say buy the Gifformatic Auto, except that's slow and lurchy as well. The ride is so poor and the cabin material's so bad that makes Soviet-era Russians feel sorry for PT Cruiser drivers. But it is different, and they really were trying to make an interesting car at the time. This is when designers were having a great time. All that retro design fad stuff was at its absolute peak. As well as the Mini and the Beetle, Chrysler gave us this, and the Prowler, and Chevy gave us the SSR van and that weird convertible hardtop pickup truck thing. Great times. Anyway, the concept car drew inspiration from the 1940s and 50s hot rods that were based on the 30s and 40s cars. It looked incredible, and some say PT actually stands for Plymouth Truck because they were actually aiming it to be a Plymouth product before Plymouth the brand got cancelled and it got shuffled over to Chrysler. Unfortunately, the production version went full Allegro, taking the stunning concept and blobifying it and spoiling it, but it went down a storm with an older generation who really connected with the mid-century design themes, and for years they were absolutely everywhere. Owners adored them. They even turned up at car shows for a long time. And I will admit, they were incredibly practical, and I've always got time for a car with a picnic table built into the boot. But the thing is, I think they are going to come full circle. In fact, they are coming full circle, because the boomers who first bought them are hanging up their car keys, and more Gen X and older millennials who kind of sniggered at them won't be rushing out to buy them. The younger generations, the younger millennials and the Generation Alpha type people, they won't have the connotations and the old prejudices towards this car, and they'll just see a cool, different, interesting car, the same way they look at some things like Rovers and audio cassettes. They don't see the downsides, they just see something cool and retro and interesting. As you can barely give them away right now, it is absolutely the time to buy. They literally can't get any cheaper. You could probably weigh one in for scrap and make a profit if they got any cheaper than they are right now. But I think they're going to have a bit of a curve because they're interesting, and that really is something that makes cars valuable in the future. Okay, a bit more sensible now, getting back onto safer ground. The BMW E46 3 Series. It's elegant, it's athletic, it's the end of the ultimate driving machine era. It's produced from 1998 to 2006. The E46 represents a golden era for BMW, and performance, design and reliability were still things they counted for. The E46 nailed that balance between modern and timeless. Its proportions are near perfect. Tight overhangs, strong shoulder lines, strong stance, not overly fussy, and it's aged really gracefully. It's from Chris Bangle's tenure as head of design at BMW, and it must be one of his most restrained designs ever. This was peak BMW engineering. The manuals were still in the majority of cars as well. In fact, manual transmission models are becoming more in demand with these because they're great drivers' cars. Now, regardless if you go for a 318, a 325, an M3, the E46 feels connected and responsive and fun. Something that modern cars just don't always manage to do. The M3 is the halo, of course, powered by the 3.2 litre S54 inline 6. And of course the M3 is the ultimate one to collect. But there's lots more that are lower price points, which are equally fun and perhaps more usable because it's not that kind of big power halo car. They've got a massive global fan base, which helps keep them alive and helps drive the value or maintain the value. Parts are widely available, forums are active, there's DIY guides on the internet, and you can buy bits for it pretty much anywhere. This was perhaps the last 3 Series that has that 90s, early noughties trick of having enough electronics to be reliable, but still being analog enough to actually feel alive as you drive it. After this, BMW design kind of went a bit squiffy. The E90 that followed it wasn't as bad as future designs, but the proportions were a little bit off, and since then they've ditched manual gearboxes, they've focused on screens, they've just spent too much time on interior electronics and less on the drivability. Park an E46 coupe in your garage next to an E39 estate and you have got the perfect 2-car garage. Now, I did say I was going heavy on Land Rovers this episode, and this is our second one, the L318, which ran from 1998 to 2004, or if you're not a Land Rover nerd, the Discovery 2. Okay, it's basic, it's cramped, it's crude, and it's brilliant. Not much change from the original Discovery 1, which wasn't much change from the original Range Rover from the 1970s. It's slightly enlarged from the previous generation, but all new panels apart from the back doors. And it was a bit more refined and a bit more grown up, so it's a nicer package than the Discovery 1, even though the Discovery 1 is definitely already a future classic, if not an actual classic in a lot of people's eyes. It came with a TD5 diesel, which is great, the 4 and 4.6 litre V8s, and they're all some of Land Rover's best engines, and you could spec it with ACE or ACE air suspension. But what makes this car so good is it feels like a proper, chunky, no-nonsense Land Rover. It's pre the Jerry McGovern chintz era. It's a friendly but no-nonsense feel to it, and it's actually pretty comfortable inside, or reasonably comfortable anyway, and it's virtually unstoppable off-road. But again though, this is special because we won't see anything like it anymore. This is something Land Rover won't make ever again since they've gone very upmarket. Of course, the new Discoveries can do all the off-road stuff, probably better, and they're significantly more comfy on the road. But it's all push-button, automatic gearbox only, touchscreen, yada, boring. It's all about bling and matching your handbag with your shoes rather than plugging through a forest or a field and feeling in any way connected with the car and the world around you, which is what the Discovery 2 actually does well. So if you want a last of the proper old school Land Rovers with an authentic look and feel of the old days, but a bit of modern safety and, let's be honest, as much reliability as you're going to get from a new one, and with a number of people who love these things, it's going to be a future classic as well. Now, like much of the rest of this list, and in particular the Breera, this is another last of its kind, as Peugeot will no longer make a cool little coupe, at least none that we know about coming up anytime soon. In fact, it seems that no one is. Even the Audi TT has been made kaput. Now, Peugeot used to be known for their inventive design, a large dash of individuality, and when they revealed this in 2009, no one saw it coming. I mean, I remember going out to shoot one of these for a newspaper review when it first came out and being genuinely impressed at what this car was and the manufacturer for making it. Now, admittedly, it was no Boxster rival. Front-wheel drive only, and a 1.6 petrol or a 2-litre diesel are the only power options. But it looked great, and it drove, well, actually pretty well, to be fair. Well enough for Top Gear and Auto Express to give it the 2010 Coupe of the Year awards, and Auto Express gave it a Special Design Award. It also got awards and accolades from Diesel Car magazine and from Autocar, who actually preferred its drive to the Audi TT, and they even raced it at Bathurst in the 12 Hour, so it had a bit of pedigree there. Now, coupes have never been any manufacturer's bestseller, but they sold just under 68,000 of them worldwide between 2009 and 2017, although production actually ended in 2015. So you don't see many on the road, but I do always notice and have a bit of a stare when I do see one. They just really stand out. This is another great last, another car we might not ever see the likes of again, but I hope we do. Maybe this car isn't well enough remembered for it to be a massive investment, but maybe sometimes you should invest in things for the soul rather than just for the wallet. This is one of them. Now, this last one is basically money in the bank. It's almost too late to grab yourself a cheap Porsche Boxster. The secret's out and people are jumping on these. So if you want to get into an affordable Porsche bargain, this could be your last chance for quite a while. Like the 924 years ago, the original 986 Boxster range has dropped to a fraction of its original price, but like all Porsches, this won't last for long, and soon you won't see one under £10,000, and soon after that £20,000, and they're going to keep on going up and up and up. Currently though, you can find decent examples for under £5,000. eBay's full of under £3,000 cars if you don't mind doing a bit of fixing, and it doesn't take much searching to turn them up for less than £2,000 with a few issues or an automatic. And you know I don't like an automatic gearbox, but the quality of Porsche manuals is so good that you really need one, and it's a proper sports car that deserves a proper manual. Now, there are a couple of engine options. Initially it was a 2.5 from 96 up to 99, then that flat 6 became a 2.7 from 99 until 2004, and also from 99 to 2004 they offered the 3.2 flat 6. And there were problems with the blocks and cylinders, but by now any cars that are still on the road will either have been fixed, have been upgraded, or it's just a good one from the start. Now, quick caveat from me, my advice is not legally binding and I take no responsibility for any car you buy after watching this. So anyway, I wouldn't worry too much about the mechanics of them in that respect if you're buying one now after 20 plus years. It's mid-engine, it's got great performance, sounds fabulous, it's one of the few cars that feels really truly alive in your hands when you're driving it. And the original model looks so fresh and clean and just so much like the original concept car it was based on. It's a real rarity, like the Breera really, to make it from concept to production looking so fresh and so good. I used to not get the hype about Porsches until I drove some, and then I really truly got it. And this is a car I think I'm going to have to leap on as well. Of all the cars on this list, if I was going to put my money into one and realistically expect it to turn a profit at some point, this is the one I would go for. Okay, this is my 10 more potential future classics. What do you think? Have I gone mad with the PT Cruiser? Am I rock solid right with the Porsche? Are the other ones stupid? Or what else would I be putting in this list at the moment? There's a lot of cars that are turning sort of 20 to 25 to 30 years old that need to be remembered and need to be saved, and some of them are going to be worth serious money before too long. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Like and subscribe as always. Say thank you to Lancaster for sponsoring this video, and check out all the other links in the description below and that kind of stuff. And I'll see you again next time driving something or doing something completely different. Goodbye.